Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to finally be doing a video that I've been talking about doing for ages, and some of you have mentioned that you are looking forward to it, so here it is. This is a video all about circus-themed books. I came up with this idea way back at the end of December when I was reading a book that was set in the circus, and I thought it'd be really fun to do just a whole video of books on this topic. So because I wanted to be completist about this, it has taken some time because I wanted to have a nonfiction book for you, an adult fiction book, a young adult fiction book, a juvenile or middle grade book, and an easy picture book, so that whatever your reading style or level, you could take part in this topic. I've never been like a super huge fan of the circus. I've never not liked the circus. I've been to the circus. I really liked the movie Dumbo as a kid that takes place in the circus. I started reading this first book that I'm going to talk about, and I've read a couple other books that were set in circuses, and I just thought it'd be a fun topic to talk about. The first book, the one that started it all, I listened to the audiobook of this the very, very end of December, and it's called Queen of the Air, A True Story of Love and Tragedy in the Circus, or at the circus. It's by Jensen, and it's a biography about Liesl, the Queen of the Air, who was a circus performer at the kind of the golden age of circus performances. She was kind of a trapeze artist. She swung around by her arms on ropes dangling really high from the ceiling. She was from a family of performers in Europe, including her mom, who she had a tumultuous relationship with, and it talks all about her life, how she came to America and worked her way up to become the biggest star and biggest attraction and like highest paid performer in circus history, and her entire life, including the life of the man who would be her husband. It was a really interesting book. I think that Liesl is a really fascinating character. She was a tiny little person who had a huge personality. Like, she decided that she was going to be the queen of the circus, and she expected everyone to treat her that way. She was an expert negotiator, and she charmed everybody, and she ran that place. And then she had her ups and downs, and I don't know, she's a really fascinating person. So that's our first one, Queen of the Air by Jensen. Give it a try if you want nonfiction. My second book is one that a lot of people talk about when they talk about circus books, and is super popular. Anytime someone mentions this book, it's always with glowing praise, or if they're mentioning their favorite books, a lot of people mention this, and that's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book I meant to read for a long, long time, and I finally read it a year or two ago, and I was not disappointed. It's beautiful. I know that she wrote the first draft as part of NaNoWriMo, so she wrote 50,000 words of it in 1 month, and that's pretty cool. This is a brilliant novel about two young people who are being trained to create magic by two, I want to say dueling, they're two competitive kind of wizards, magical type mentors, one of whom is one character's father, and the other one is just someone who adopted a young boy. And their object is kind of mysterious, but they are trying to best each other and prove that they can train the better magician. So the way that they prove this is they have a circus called the Night Circus, and they continuously have to create more and more amazing things to outdo the other one. And then in the end, whoever has the best trick wins. But there's a wrench thrown in the plans because the two young magicians, I guess you could call them, fall in love with each other. All of the imagery is great. Like, the motif of the book is the Night Circus, everything is in black and white, so that's why I have a little black and white thing here behind me to go with that theme. And it's a gorgeous book. It's quiet and it's lyrical, and yes, it's very good. When I was reading it, it reminded me a lot of Ray Bradbury. I kept wanting to compare it to Something Wicked This Way Comes, but in a less terrifying way, much a happier way and a more whimsical way. So yeah, that's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. That's our adult fiction book. Our young adult book is The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore. And this is another magical realism book about the circus. I really like that a bunch of the circus books that I'm talking about are not like what you would go to today. They aren't the commercial Barnum and Bailey kind of circus. They kind of encapsulate everything you imagine about the circus as a kid, that it's a magical place and it's not of our world. And I think that's what really captures us and why we like the circus so much. And then as adults, we see that maybe in the way they treat animals and other things, it's not very humane, or it's just a big commercial enterprise and the magic kind of is tarnished. So I like that these books bring that back, and I like anything that brings back an innocent enjoyment in something that we used to love. So The Weight of Feathers really does that very well. It's magical realism. It is about two families of performers. They're not strictly circus performers. They each have their own kind of shtick that they do, and they travel around towns in a not completely determined time frame. It feels really timeless, but also there are lots of modern elements. So I'm guessing that it is a modern setting, but the way that the families interact and the lives that they lead, it's kind of got a timeless quality to it. So, like I said, there are two families who have their own ways of performing. The Palomas are mermaids, and they are I'm not sure if they're Mexican or Spanish but they're Hispanic. They speak Spanish, and they are sirenas. They have a mermaid show, and the young women in the family have these beautiful tails that they put on, and they decorate their hair, and they put on their makeup, and they swim around and do like an Esther Williams kind of water show in any sort of natural water in the area, which sounds so cool, and I would really like to see that. They also have escamas. There's scales that are birthmarks that are kind of the birthright of the Palomas, and kind of mark them as that family. They're run by a very, very stern and strict matriarch, our main character's grandmother. Their arch rivals, the other family that we talk about, are the Corbeaus, who are of French and Romany descent. And their performances all take place in the trees. They wear wings and they climb around in tree branches. And in that way, their performances are kind of parallel to each other. They both take place in really natural environments, and they are highly choreographed, but they seem very natural, and they both sound really fascinating, and I've never heard of anything like it. So I love that whole conceit. I think it's so cool. But the two families are they're not rivals, they're nemesis. They're nemesis of each other. They have a long-standing feud. It is very much the Montagues and the Capulets, and with each family thinking that the other family is responsible for the death of someone or endangering their family members. So anytime they end up in the same town, there's always some sort of skirmish, and the young boys are fighting, but there are very strict rules. The Palomas are not allowed to touch the Corbeaus, and vice versa. And our two main characters, Cluck and Lace, end up meeting. They don't know that each of them are members of the rival family, and they have a sweet little meeting at first, and then I don't want to give anything away. There's a disaster that happens, and it brings them together more, and it results in Lace being pushed out of her family. And then the rest of the book is them dealing with the fallout of that disaster and what has happened to Lace. It very much starts out and has a lot of threads of Romeo and Juliet with the warring families, because who doesn't love Romeo and Juliet? I don't really love Romeo and Juliet. But there is so much other stuff in this book. There's so many other issues that are dealt with, and Lace and Cluck are such well-written characters, and I love being in their head. The narration flips back and forth between the two of them, and I love them both. Another thing I love is that because this is magical realism, and I think that this is more prevalent in magical realism than in realistic fiction books or even like high fantasy or sci-fi, is that I think it's almost because magical realism feels more indulgent to me. There is more room in the description for more poetic and like lots of really beautiful metaphors and things. So this is a line that I really loved from the book. It's "The gilt knocked around in her, a heavy bead inside a jewelry box, rubbing down the velvet lining." And that's just one example that's kind of 3/4 of the way through the book. But it's gorgeously written. It's a really diverse cast of people, and I really recommend that. I think that was probably, I know I still have 2 more books to talk about, but I think this one was my favorite of the Circus books. It checked off all my little boxes of things that I love. Okay, so the next book is also another magical realism. I think this one is more towards fantasy. That's where I'd place it anyways, but it's kind of in there, in between, in that kind of gray area. It's called The Circus Mirandus. It's by Cassie Beasley. And this one is actually on the current Bluebonnet list for Texas. So if you are a reader in Texas and you have a like elementary, middle grade kid, this is a book that they will probably be reading in school, or they will have a choice to read, and I really suggest it. It's a lot of fun. It's a really sweet book. Circus Mirandus is about a young boy named Micah Tuttle whose parents died when he was a baby, and he's been raised by his grandfather. He and his grandfather are very close, and he's grown up hearing stories of his grandfather's youth and the magical Circus Mirandus. This was another book that reminded me a lot of Something Wicked This Way Comes, but again in a not scary way, in that the Circus Mirandus is a magical circus that just appears. So when we meet Micah, his grandfather has gotten really sick and he's dying, and his great aunt has come to stay with them as his grandfather dies, and Micah's gonna have to go live with her, which, if his great aunt was anything like his grandfather, it would be totally fine. But his great aunt is awful. I kind of hate that. She's like this stereotypical kind of shrew of an old woman, but she is, and that's very important in the story. So in the stories that his grandfather tells about the Circus Mirandus when he was a kid, he tells one of how he earned a miracle from one of the magicians at the circus. And now that he is sick, he is calling in this miracle. So he's trying to get a hold of the Circus Mirandus so that he can redeem his miracle that he saved all of these years. Micah also becomes kind of obsessed with finding the Circus Mirandus because he knows that this miracle can save his grandfather's life, and he is desperate to do that because he loves him and he doesn't want to live without him. So the rest of the story is finding the circus, and the circus is amazing, and the story flips back and forth from the present to some of Grandpa Tuttle's experiences as a kid and the things going on behind the scenes in the circus. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of fantastical elements, and Micah makes some good friends outside of the circus, or a really good friend outside of the circus who helps him find the circus and have his adventures. I don't want to say much more because I don't want to give anything away. I really recommend Circus Mirandus by Cassie Beasley. And that brings us to our last book on this topic. I did not do a bunch of searching for a easy picture book for this because the minute I thought about it, I just had one. And even though the circus is just a minor plot point in it, I was like, no, I want to do it. This is my show, whatever. So my circus themed book, my wildly grasping, not very loosely based circus book for my easy picture book selection is Tuesday by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Adam Rex. This is a book about I might have mentioned it before, it's about a young panda named Chew who sneezes really loud. And it goes through his entire day and like going around town, going to the library, and having lunch in a diner with his dad and all this stuff. And the last scene of the book takes place in a circus, And that's where the climax of the book takes place. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a picture book and it takes you like 5 minutes to read it, so you can go do that yourself. So yeah, that's Tuesday by Neil Gaiman and Adam Rex. I think that's all I have for circus related things. I had a lot of fun doing this. It took me a while to kind of read all the books and decide which ones I wanted to talk about, but I really like this theme, and if you guys want, I can try to do more if you have any ideas for a theme that you wouldn't mind waiting for a while for me to tackle. I would definitely be up for it, so just leave those in the comments below. I guess that's it for me. Okay, make sure you do all those nice things you can do on YouTube, like this video. Like I said, comment below if you have any other topics you think would be fun to cover. And if you've read any of these circus books, or if you think I missed any, I know I didn't do Water for Elephants. I never read that one. I don't know. I saw the movie on a plane once. It was pretty, so I guess the book probably is even better. Share this wherever you share YouTube videos, subscribe, and I will see you next time.